Welcome, and thank you for spending the next 60 minutes with me. I know your time is valuable. You're running a manufacturing business, and there's always something pulling at you. So I'm going to make you a simple promise right now. You're going to walk away from this webinar with at least one useful thing that you can bring back into your business tomorrow. That's my promise, that you're going to have one thing that you're going to bring into your business tomorrow to make things better. Now, I can't do that without your full attention today. So I'm going to ask you to do three things with me for the next hour. The first is to get real. So be honest about what's going on in your business. The second is to keep it simple, right? Not complexity. This is not your latest management fad or trend. These are all everything I'm going to talk to you about today is proven and simple. And the next thing is to get results, to focus on the actual results on your business. By the end of this session, I want you to be thinking about the specific steps you can take to get a better grip on your business. Now, first off, I'm going to start with a little context about me and EOS. Okay, EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's a complete practical system for helping entrepreneurial companies just like yours, get what they want from their businesses. Now, EOS was created by a gentleman named Gino Wickman, who started building the system inside his own family business before eventually sharing it with the world. What Gino observed was that there was a real void in the marketplace, just an empty space where there was plenty of management thinking designed for huge entrepreneurial level, or excuse me, enterprise level organizations. But there was really nothing out there for companies and leaders running a company of 10, 50, or about 200 people, privately held businesses. And he noticed that the dynamics for those types of businesses are totally different. The challenges are different. And he felt that the tools needed to be different too. So, what Gino ultimately built is a complete practical system that treats the most common frustrations that leadership teams contend with um, uh, clearly and effectively. It's been implemented by about 350,000 companies worldwide at this point. Most of them are in North America and Canada, but there's a presence across the planet at this point. This is not theoretical stuff. This is road tested and it works. Now, a little bit of information about me. Who's this guy that's talking at you? My name is James Wisdom. I'm a certified EOS implementer. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I got bit by the internet bug very early in my life, and so I got involved with marketing and e-commerce early in my life, and spent 17 years working with leadership teams, or working on leadership teams, excuse me, in the Fortune 100. So companies you've probably heard of, like QVC, Aflac, Accenture, where I did work at Cargill, United Airlines, Best Buy, and Lowe's. And then I ran a marketing team at Randstad as well, the largest staffing company in the world. By that point, I thought I knew everything. Guess what? Spoiler alert, I didn't. So I opened up a marketing agency. Was great. I had an awesome first 2 years, made a lot of money, but gave up pretty much all of my personal life, and it was pretty miserable. I was complaining to somebody that I knew about my business, and they said, "Oh, have you heard about Traction or EOS?" And I said, "No," and they told me about it. And I said, "Oh, that sounds fantastic. I'll check it out." And of course, I didn't. And then, no joke, 3 weeks later, I was complaining about my business to somebody else, and they said exactly the same thing. "Oh, have you heard about Traction and EOS?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, fine. You know, once is a fluke, twice is a sign." So I implemented EOS in my business. I tripled revenues over the next 3 years, which led to an acquisition where I was very happy with the situation. And I made an exit, and then I decided, what the heck am I going to do with the rest of my life? And by that point, I had become such a believer in EOS and seeing the impact it can have on my life. It literally changed my life and my family life, and it changed my business life, that I decided to become an EOS implementer. And thus you find me here in front of you today. So that's a little bit about me. Now, I have manufacturing clients that I work with on a regular basis. I've got one manufacturing client that I can think of right off the top of my head that is they're an adhesives manufacturer. They had been doing EOS for a while, not quite getting it. But when I came in, what I saw was like frustrations on the team about things getting done, communication, projects actually coming in on time, projects coming in on budget, clarity on the future. So I've been working with that team and I will be continuing to work with that team to help them get clear on those things. But they've seen immediate change in their business. We're about 6 months into their journey. They're now running awesome meetings. They're hitting their goals. They're rolling EOS out to the organization. They're seeing a much higher level of accountability, not only in the leadership team, but throughout the organization. So I love manufacturing. I'm here to talk to you about EOS specifically for manufacturing today. And that's a little bit about me. So enough. So I'm going to move on now to the next section, which is frustrations, right? So most business leaders are dealing with at least one frustration in their business. So the first frustration is the feeling that you're not in control of the business, right? You built this thing, and this is exactly how I felt, frankly. You understand every part of it, but somewhere along the way, the business sort of started running you instead of the other way around. Now, one of my clients described it this way. My plant's running, orders are shipping, but I'm the one holding everything together. I'm the glue. And if I step away for a week, I'm not sure what's going to break, and I'm not sure what's going to be left when I get back. That's a control problem. And that's really, really, really common with entrepreneurial companies and manufacturing companies. The second is the lack of profit. You're generating revenue, you're busy, the floor is humming, you've got orders, but at the end of the quarter, you look at the numbers and you say to yourself, is this really the return that I deserve for the amount of effort and investment, the time, capital, energy, and risk that you've put into this business? Now, manufacturers in general feel this specifically acutely because the cost structure is real and visible, right? Materials, labor, overhead. Margin pressure is constant. And if this is hitting close to home for you, that's normal. That's very normal. So, unfortunately, that's a really common frustration that I see. The third one's people. You have great people and you have people problems. The typical manufacturing company has someone who's been on the floor for 15 years and holds critical tribal knowledge in their head, someone who was a brilliant machinist and got promoted to supervisor because they're great at what they do, but they're not necessarily there and they're not necessarily great at leading people. The owners and leaders are frustrated with employees, the employees are frustrated with each other, and nobody seems to care quite as much as you do. Right? If that sounds familiar, that just makes you normal. That's very, very typical, and that's what I see with a lot of my clients. The fourth frustration is hitting the ceiling. This is when businesses in their early years, and I saw this myself for the first 2 or 3 years I was in business. It goes great. Everything's fantastic. You're making lots of money. The processes are working. That's because everything is going through you. You're scrappy. You can turn on a dime. Any problem that comes up, you can solve it. Then you grow, and somewhere between where you started and where you are now, you hit a wall. Growth slows down, complexity increases, and the informal way of running things, or what I like to call jump ball, it stops working. That's not a failure. That's just a growth challenge. It's a scaling opportunity for you, and there's a way through that. The fifth is that nothing's working. And this is the feeling that everything you've tried to fix this stuff just isn't working. You've read books, you've brought in consultants, you've tried new software, you're investing in the flavor of the month. But the problem with that is that your team starts to look at you as a flavor of the month leader, and you're starting to wonder if they're right. Now, if you felt anything, if these frustrations resonate with you, take comfort in knowing that that's true for 95% of the people that are in leadership roles in entrepreneurial businesses and manufacturing businesses. These are super common, and there is a way out. Now, what drove Gino to create EOS was obsessing about the difference between those 95% of companies that are suffering under these frustrations and the 5% that are running truly great businesses. What he discovered is that great businesses are just simply stronger in six specific things, the six key components that allow the company to move forward together with a shared vision. That's what we're going to spend the rest of our time today in this webinar covering. So here we go. So this is the six key components. You'll see there's six slices of the pie. Visualize your company right in the middle of it. Now, I'm going to give you a quick overview of these six key components, then we're going to do a deep dive on each one. Now, first up, we've got the vision component. Now, when you're strong in the vision component, everybody in the organization, from the leadership team down to the floor, is 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you're going to get there. Every person is rowing in the same direction. And the people component, it's pretty obvious, but it bears repeating that you can't realize a great vision if you don't have great people in your organization. Now, what we do is we go about defining what great actually truly means in each unique organization, right? 'Cause it's not the same for every organization. A great person at one company may be a terrible person at another, and vice versa. So you have to define what great actually means in your organization. So you're attracting those people and you're frankly repelling the people that aren't going to be great in your organization. The third one is the data component. Now, this is about running your business on facts, figures, on objective, actionable information rather than gut feel, opinions, whoever's loudest in the room, and egos, right? What we see with organizations and some entrepreneurial organizations is they're just making decisions based on what they think is the best idea without a lot of data and a lot of support. You got to be tracking the right data, and that's got to be actually driving your decision-making process. The next key component is the issues component. Now, what we've realized is that when the vision, people, and data components are clear, the business becomes transparent and lots of issues start to arise. Now, issues aren't just problems, they're also opportunities that you're going to want to address, but you have to get great at solving those issues, making the most of those opportunities when they arise, as opposed to slapping duct tape on it and hoping for the best. I will tell you that in my business, it was mostly duct tape by the time I had hit about that 2.5 year point, because I would solve something just to get it out of the way and move on. And then guess what? The duct tape falls off 3 weeks later and you're back to square one. I was in this continuous process of thinking I had solved something, I hadn't really got to the core issue. And then I wind up coming back and having to do it again and again and again. So if that feels resonant with you, don't worry, that's just normal. Now, the third key component is the process component. Now, this is about getting the most important things in your business done the right way every single time, even when you're not there to supervise, right? So in manufacturing, obviously, you've got to have strong processes on the floor, right? But they oftentimes live in people's heads. And when your best people are out, what happens? Right? That's a process challenge that needs to be thought about and needs to be dealt with. Now, the final component is the traction component. Now, this bringing your vision down to the ground. It's on the bottom of the model for a reason. Vision's at the top of the model, traction's at the bottom. Uh, with focus, discipline, and accountability. This is where that vision meets the rubber meets the road, as we like to say. As Gino says, vision without traction is hallucination. Right? Now, when you're strong in all six of these key components, we shoot for 80% or better. You're running one of those truly great businesses. Most of our clients that we work with get there in about 2 years. It takes time. This is hard work, but it is so worth it. It's so effective, so helpful for helping you become a truly great manager, your team becoming truly great managers, and your business becoming a great business too. Now it's time for the deep dive. We're going to go first into the vision component. Now we're going to start with the 8 questions, right? The 8 questions are, what are your core values? What's your core focus? What's your 10-year target? What's your marketing strategy? What's your 3-year picture? What's your 1-year plan? What are your quarterly priorities or rocks? And what's your issues list? Now, I'm going to go through these really quickly, one at a time. But the power here is in getting the entire leadership team to 100% agree on the answers to these 8 questions I'm about to share with you. These are simple questions to ask, and this is a highly streamlined process of strategic planning. I'm going to go through each one of the questions now. So let's start with core values. Now, here's this is what it looks like. And this can be downloaded on the web. Just search EOS Vision Traction Organizer or VTO. You can get to a page, you can download it. Please feel free. By the way, everything I'm going to share with you today is openly available on the internet. We believe in providing everything, every tool every business owner needs to be successful. And what we love to say internally is that we want to make a dent in the universe. And that's what I love doing too. Back to core values. So core values they're the 5 to 7 things that make you distinctive, that define who you are at the core. Now, this is unique for every single company, and this is not meant to be wallpaper, right? So in a lot of organizations, core values are something that they put on a wall, they have a poster, maybe cups, maybe t-shirts, and everybody says, oh, isn't this fantastic? Then they forget about them. And meanwhile, the leadership isn't following the core values. Everybody sees that, and it's actually destructive of value in your organization. So your core values are your specific core values in your organization, not just decoration, right? Poster and cup companies love core values because they waste a lot of time and energy. But real core values, which I love, real core values actually define what you want from your company culture and help you get it. But I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive on how we do that later. But that's core values. Now, core focus. This is your organization's sweet spot, what you love to do and what you're truly great at. Now, this is the kind of work where you make the most money, you have the most fun, and you most consistently delight your customers. Now, manufacturers often struggle here because there's a temptation to take any job that comes through the door, especially when capacity is available. But chasing the wrong work outside of your core focus creates complexity, it erodes margin, and it dilutes the team. It can be a really destructive distraction. So what we do is we get together, we define what your core focus is, so you stay laser focused on the work that you as an organization are built to do. Next up is your 10-year target. Now, this is the question. What's your big goal? Where do you want the business to be 10 years from now? Or, anytime between 5 to 30 years from now, you define the duration, but it should be specific, measurable, and energizing for you and the team. A manufacturer might say, I want to become the preferred contract manufacturer for medical device OEMs in the Mid-Atlantic with $50 million in revenue and ISO certification. Right? Or it might be simpler. Run a business that doesn't need me in the building to function. Whatever it is, the more people you share it with, the more likely it is that you're going to achieve it. It's just a point on the horizon that you're working toward every single day and every single action to achieve. It's that destination where you want to go. You have to have that destination or you're never going to get there. And you got to tell everybody about it, by the way, and I'll mention that in a second. Third one up is your marketing strategy. What's your marketing strategy? Now there are four parts: your target market, your three uniques, your proven process, and your guarantee. Now, starting with the target market, that's about who is your ideal customer specifically? Given you've got a finite set of marketing and sales resources, who are you going to deploy those marketing and sales resources against in order to maximize the value of that time, energy, and resource spend? For the second, the three uniques are what are the three things that truly make you unique in the eyes of your customer? Right. So what makes you unique? And everybody says, well, I'm just the same as everybody else. You're not, right? You need to spend the time to work out, okay, well, what makes me truly unique? Sure, all of your competitors might be producing similar products, all of your competitors might have a similar process, but maybe what's that special thing that you do differently? Maybe it's around relationships, maybe it's around thought leadership, maybe it's around your customer service levels are truly unique, but we have to find what those three truly unique things are so you can communicate that out to the marketplace. Next up is the proven process. The proven process is just a simple one-page document that helps your prospects and clients understand what engagement with you looks like from the moment they're hearing about you, excuse me, to the moment that they're raving business customers of yours that are telling everybody about how fantastic you are. It's a simple visual guide on how you work together. And then finally, there's the guarantee. The guarantee is a pledge, promise, or an actual guarantee that is a statement that you are making into the marketplace to ease people to come into your door, right? So you're removing objections with your guarantee. You have to be able to articulate that. All right, so that is the marketing. That's the marketing strategy portion. Now let's move on to the three-year picture. Now, you have to think about what does your business look like and what does it need to look like 3 short years from now on the way to that 10-year target. Now, this is where you start to make that 10-year target concrete. So we start with the future date, so 3 years in the future from today. Revenue, where's your revenue going to be? Your profit, maybe your EBITDA. Your measurables, and then you define what does this actually look like with the leadership team? What does it look like? Now, this is close enough to feel real, right? It's on the horizon. It's not way out in the distance, not across the planet, but it's visual. It's you can see it. And when your team actually agrees on what that 3-year picture is in their mind's eye, that annual planning process that we're about to do becomes markedly easier. But more importantly, when they can see it in their mind's eye, the chances that you're going to achieve it are so much higher. The leadership team and eventually the entire team is just executing toward that shared vision. You're defining what that vision is going to look like. All right. Next up is your 1 year plan. This is the traction side of the document, by the way, but this is the 1 year plan. Now, you have to define what are the 3 to 7 most important things that your company must accomplish in the next year or a little bit less than a year in order to be on track toward that 3 year picture. Now, you'll notice at the top there, we use the same things, your future date, your revenue, profit, maybe EBITDA, and your measurables. And then we define what are those 3 to 7 most important things that must get done in order to put you on track to achieve that 3 year picture. Call these annual goals. Now we say 3 to 7 because in an organization where everything is a priority, nothing is a priority, right? Just keep it simple, keep it brief. Now, I'm sure that every single one of you is a lot like me when I was running my business pre-EOS, was just trying to do everything all the time. The most important stuff gets done poorly, and the stuff that isn't really that important generally doesn't get done at all, right? So we want to focus down on specifically what needs to get done in order for you to achieve your long-term goals. Next up are the rocks. These are just your 90-day priorities, the 3 to 7 most important things that the company must accomplish in the next 90 days in order to put you on track again for that 1 year picture. Now, each rock you'll notice has a single owner, one person on the leadership team who's personally accountable for making it happen. Now, this is where strategic planning stops being in a binder on a shelf and starts actually driving behavior. Now, every quarter, you reset, realign, and recommit to the next set of rocks. And frankly, you got to look back and say, hey, what happened with the rocks? How do we do? Where are we successful? Where do we struggle? Right? That reflection brings value, helps you become a better predictor, and helps you have more clarity on how you can run a better business over time. Finally, is the issues list. Now, the eighth question is your organizational issues list. This is where great ideas, new opportunities, and unresolved challenges live until they become a priority. This is not a dumping ground. It's a parking lot that gives your team confidence that nothing important just disappears and gets lost because it's not a priority right now. A lot of my clients actually in the session room and when we're working together, they make a conscious decision to not work on something this quarter. Right. So we put it on the issues list. We say, you know what, this is not important right now. It's going to be important a year from now. We don't want to forget about it. But we are actually going to actively say we're not going to do a single iota of work on this quarter because it is not relevant. It's not good use of our time right now. And making that conscious decision is tremendously valuable because, again, it's removing distractions, removing noise from your environment. Okay. Now, once the leadership team has this vision fully fleshed out, on all these 8 questions, you got to share this with everybody in the organization, right? Repeatedly. Humans need to hear things 7 times before they truly hear it once and internalize it, right? So make this a discipline. You'll be sharing the vision every quarter at every level of the company, down to the people that are individual contributors. Yes. And when you do that consistently, 100% of your people will know where you're going. And that's what 100% strong looks like in the vision component. That is, they'll know where we're going, they'll know how you plan to get there, and they'll know, frankly, whether they want to be part of it. That's what 100% strong looks like in the vision component. Now let's move on to the people component. So there's 2 components built on. Jim Collins invented the terms good to right people, right seats in the book Good to Great. We use those terms as well. So this is about getting the right people in the right seats. Now, EOS gives you actually practical tools to execute on that idea. Now, right people are the people that share your core values. They consistently exhibit the behaviors and attitudes that define your culture. Now, remember when I mentioned core values about 10 minutes ago when we were talking about the Vision Traction Organizer? The core values that you define are the people that you want to have, are the values that you want to have in your culture. And that should determine how you're hiring, who you're hiring, review, reward, and recognition of your people if you want those core values to actually matter and have an impact on your business, right? You want to find people that are a match for your core values. Now, right seats means that they're in a role, right seats means that they're in a role that that they genuinely want to do the work, that they're great at, and they have the capacity, the training, the experience, and the skills to be consistently excellent in that role. That's right seats. We're going to get to that a little bit more in a second. So let's dive into the people analyzer, which we use for right people. So the first tool here that we use for getting the right people in the right seats is the people analyzer. Now, this is simple. You take your core values, you put them across the top of the grid. We've got the EOS core values here as an example. You put your people's names down the left side, and for each person and each core value, you ask, do they consistently exhibit this? A plus means yes, most of the time. A minus means no, most of the time. And a plus minus means sometimes. Now, what this gives you is a clear picture of who is a genuine culture fit and who isn't, and who's borderline. And it gives you the framework for that conversation instead of just, hey, there's something about you that's not working, like something vague. You can say, you know what, when I hired you, we talked about our core values. These things matter and they're core to our business. Here's where you're falling short. Let's have a conversation about it. Right? That turns an awkward confrontation into a productive coaching conversation where you're trying to achieve a specific goal because oftentimes these conversations sort of go around and around in circles. This gives you the framework to have a meaningful conversation. Now, in manufacturing, this tool is particularly valuable because you often have long tenured employees who are technically excellent, but who may have outgrown the culture fit for a growing organization. It happens, right? Or who have always been a culture problem that nobody's ever had a framework to address. Okay. So this is a tool that you can use to address those kinds of problems. Now, next up is the right seats. I mentioned the right seats. These are people that are great at their job and love what they do. Now, this is the accountability chart. We have a philosophy, which is we start with structure first, people second, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. Now, for right seats, we use what's called the accountability chart. Now, this is not an org chart. It's a map of the major functions of your business that you need to have in place in order to operate and win, be successful, with clear ownership of each function and a simple 5-role job description for each seat. Now, to determine if someone belongs in a seat, we use a tool called GWC, gets it, wants it, and has the capacity to do it. Now, gets it means they are naturally wired for this kind of work. It's not something you can train into somebody. Wants it means they spring out of bed in the morning wanting to be great at this job, not just have a job and a paycheck. And capacity means they have the skills, training, and maturity to execute consistently. That's the people analyzer. Now, that's how we ensure everybody in your organization is the right person because they share your core values and they fit your culture. Now, with the accountability chart, what we have is we have a structure here. Now, we customize this, and your business is different. Your business doesn't fit into a cookie cutter. That's normal. Is we say, okay, well, if you're willing to agree with the basic assumption that every organization needs to get orders, do orders, and get paid. That's marketing and sales is getting orders. Executing orders is operations, like actually making the stuff, creating the product, and finance is getting paid. If you're willing to start with that as a presumption, we define first at this bottom level what those look like in your specific organization. Sometimes the marketing and sales breaks out to 2 different seats. Sometimes there's multiple operating seats, even 2, 3, 4 seats, depending on the organization. Sometimes finance breaks out to HR, IT, with customer service sometimes, but we define what that looks like for your specific organization. Right. Then above that, we've got a role called the integrator. Now, the integrator is the one that is the glue that holds the business together. They harmonize all those functions so that everybody is working clearly together and achieving their goals together. That's the role of the integrator. They have the tough conversations. They keep the entire business running like a clock. Above that, we've got the visionary role. Now, the visionary role is generally the individual that is great at big conversations. Oftentimes, they're the face of the company. They're oftentimes the founder. They're the ones that can go out into the marketplace and really tell the story for the organization so that it builds out trust in the organization and it brings business in. So that's the visionary role of the organization. And what we have found is that when you have an integrator and a visionary that are well matched, right? Those are like Batman and Robin, superpower, Wonder Twin powers activate, right? These are people that work great together. If you look back at the history of business, even businesses that you haven't written, but that haven't had books written about them, you're almost always going to find an amazing integrator visionary fit. right? Because the visionary is the one that has the big ideas. They're pouring those ideas in the organization, and the integrator is helping make those ideas a reality. And that's the basic premise of the accountability chart. Now, moving on to the next step. Now, what we do within the accountability chart is we define what each one of those seats actually looks like. We start with the name of the function. So maybe it's marketing, and I'm going to show a marketing example in a second. And then what are the 5 major roles that that seat needs to have in order for it to be considered successful? Okay. Then the very last thing that we do is we put a name in that seat. So first we start with, well, what are the seats that we need in order to be successful? So we step back from the organization as if we were a consultant or as if we were buying the company, as if we were doing a valuation. And we say, okay, well, what are the seats that really need to be in place here? What are the functions that need to sit in that seat? And then last up, who are the people that actually are going to go into that seat? Okay. So here's an example. Here's a marketing and sales seat. Okay. So they've got LMA, which is leadership, management, and accountability for everybody that they have reporting to them. Obviously, they're responsible for marketing. They're responsible for hitting the sales numbers. They're responsible for actually selling and account management. This is just a sample. This is very high level, but provides clarity about what success looks like for each one of the seats. And what I see with my clients consistently is that this eliminates ambiguity between seats. Because every time I've ever done this, there's always been, well, does this belong here or does it belong here? Because right now it's jump ball, right? So things will come into the business. People won't really know how to do it. There will be a mad scramble to see who's going to pick it up this time. Maybe it's Fred, maybe it's Mary, maybe it's Francine. When we have well-defined seats, it eliminates that ambiguity. So there's absolute clarity on who's responsible for what and who's accountable for the results of that function. Okay. Now, next up, we go to GWC, and I talked about this a little more, but the idea here is that you want every single person, every single seat to GWC their seat. They get it, they want it, and they have the capacity to be successful in the role. Now, get it is just, do they have the DNA and do they understand the ins and outs of the role? Do they just get it at their core function, right? They have to be wired for the role. Second up is, do they want it? Do they actually want to get out of bed and do great work every day? Because you can't incentivize them, you can't beg them, you can't plead with them to want to work for you. And finally is the capacity to do it. This is the training, the experience in their past, the background that they've got, uh, everything that goes into who they are that gives them the skills and expertise to be successful in the role. The emotional capacity, if they're going to be a leader, their ability to have conversations with people and tough conversations. That's part of capacity if they're in a leadership role. Now, as an example, right, for a seat, we've got a center here. Right. So I don't know if there's any hockey fans in the audience, but the center, the center is responsible for winning faceoffs, creating scoring chances, scoring goals, back check and defense, and minimize turnover. Now you want to have a center that gets it, like they understand this without having to without it having to be explained to you. They know what their seat is. They get it. They understand it. They want to do it. They actually enjoy getting out on the ice and back checking and defending people. They enjoy minimizing turnovers. They enjoy the success that comes with the role. They want to do this work. And finally, they have the capacity to do it. They're amazing skaters. They've spent 15, 20 years on the ice. They know how to do what they do. They've got the experience, they've got the training, they've got the background, they've got the visualization exercises. They're doing whatever they need to do in order to be excellent in this role. They've got the capacity. Hope this makes sense. All right, moving on. So in the people analyzer that I showed you before, GWC fits in here as well, right? So as I said before, we start with the core values, you give them the plus minus, or the minus, and then you add these 3 columns, gets it, wants it, and capacity. Now here's the thing, excuse me, not the core values, I misspoke, the GWC. So if they are a no on any of the GWC, that's a deal breaker. Okay, so if they don't get the role, they probably shouldn't be in that role, right? Now, the good news is that if there are great core values fit, there maybe is another seat in your organization that they can be placed into. But if there isn't, I'm going to counsel you, unless you want to become a compulsory nonprofit, that you actually move that person out of that organization, right? That's a tough conversation to have, but that's what you have to do. Now, if they don't want it, right? They probably shouldn't be in the organization unless it's they just don't want that seat. Again, you can find a seat for them, or if they don't have the capacity to be successful in that seat. They've got to say yeses to all three of those. So Maria, thankfully, is a yes. John, unfortunately, doesn't have the capacity, right? So there's a little bit of opportunity where you can train John up, but you got to be very, very, very clear about, well, what are your expectations? Is he truly going to GWC that seat 6 months in the future, or is it maybe someday? Because if it's maybe someday, you're probably fooling yourself, and you need to actually take action to either get him to the level of capacity where he's going to be able to perform to his seat, or move him out of the organization. George Wilson, we've got he doesn't get it, right? So he doesn't understand the seat, he doesn't execute well on the seat, and again, he's probably not going to be a fit for that particular seat, but you might be able to find him a seat somewhere else in the organization. Okay, moving on. So again, we've got the function with the 5 roles. Now, once you've done that for the leadership team, you then take that exact same discipline and percolate it down through the organization so that every single seat in the organization has clarity on what that seat's expectations are, and that you then place the names in those seats so there's no ambiguity. Everybody has clarity on what it is the expectations are for that seat, and everybody understands how those seats are going to interact with one another. That's right seats. Now, there's two types of people issues. I kind of mentioned these before, but it bears going over again, which is the first is you've got a right person in the wrong seat, right? So you've got somebody who is a great core values match for you. You love them, they fit the culture like a glove, but they're in the wrong seat. Now, as I said before, maybe there's another seat in the organization where they truly GWC that seat. Great, move them into that seat. If there's not, you're going to have a tough conversation. Now, the second type of people issue that we run across is the toughest one, frankly. We've got the wrong person in the right seat. Now, these are people that are great at what they do. They execute on their role beautifully, but they're the wrong person. So these are people that are in your organization. They're eroding your company culture. They're potentially damaging your relationships with vendors, suppliers, etc. But they just don't share your core values, right? They're eroding your company from the inside out. This is really toxic, and I'm going to always recommend that when you see that, when you identify that in an organization, you need to have a tough conversation. Okay. Now, in manufacturing, the most common right person, wrong seat situation is, as I mentioned before, sort of that brilliant machinist or technician who gets promoted to supervisor because they're best at their craft, not because they're best at leading people. Now they get it and they want it, but they don't have the capacity, the leadership capacity. Now that's a coaching opportunity, but it actually may be that they may be actually much happier being individual contributors. I run into that with my clients a lot. I've seen it happen on leadership teams where they want to elevate people into leadership positions, and the people say, "Hey, whoa, 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 hold on a second. I want to stay as an individual contributor because that's where I feel like I bring the most value, and that's where I'm happiest." Good. Have that conversation. Help your people find the right seats that are going to be best for them. Now, moving right along. So that's what 100% strong looks like in your organization. Right people, people that match your core values in the right seats that are actually able to execute on the expectations for their seats. You got to have both to have a truly high performing organization. Moving along to the data component. Now, this is going to speed up a little bit because vision and people are the biggest, sort of the most complex, but we're going to get into the data component next. Now, the data component, I love this quote. If we have data, let's look at the data. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine. It's just a great quote, and I think it says it all about data. But you have to have what we call the data component's got to be strong. And the first point that we work on is the scorecard for the leadership team. Okay, well, we had a little technical hiccup there, but I'm back with you now. We were talking about scorecard. So every leadership team needs to have a scorecard, a simple 5 to 15 simple weekly numbers that help you keep an absolute pulse in your business and become a great predictor as a leader. Now, what we have in this scorecard is very simple. It's each measurable. So what are the activity numbers that are going to drive your business? So these are forward-looking numbers. There's a goal for each number. So what number do you need to hit each and every week in order to know that the business is on track. There's an owner for that number. So this is the person that's actually responsible for delivering that number. And then we've got at least 13 weeks of history at a glance. So you can start to discern where there's trends, where you see seasonal trends, for example, changes, et cetera. And so you start to get a better view of the business. Most of my clients actually look way back further than 13 weeks. They oftentimes have a rolling year, but for the purposes of looking at it every single week, we find that 13 weeks is a good measure to keep it simple. That's the scorecard. Now, here's a couple of simple scorecard measurable samples like weekly revenue, cash balance, sales calls, sales meetings, right? These are big indicators of how the business is going to go, how many proposals are out in the marketplace, how many closed businesses, how much closed business we're going to have, et cetera, et cetera. Now, most of my clients do like a deep dive financial every single month. This scorecard is meant to be reviewed every single week to make sure that if something's going sideways in the business, you know about it as soon as it's happening, not when it's not after everything has sort of gone sideways and you're now playing cleanup mode. You want to know as soon as possible. So that's the scorecard. Now, then we have measurables. Now, measurables are simply are simply giving every single person in the business, every single person down to your individual contributors, at least one measurable that they're responsible for delivering on every single week. And I've had clients say to me, and I actually had one of them contact me recently, say to me, how do I give a measurable to a plumber, right? I actually have a client, they graduated a few years ago and are doing great, just had an article written about them. And what they decided to do is they had a real problem with stock on the vans. So they actually gave each plumber two measurables. One was the stock on the vans. They had to keep the vans up to snuff in terms of how much stock was on the vans. If it was too high or it was too low, it surfaced. They saw it in the meeting that they did every week and they would address it. So that built that discipline for them. The other is returns, right? So the worst thing that can happen for a service-based business is that Bob the plumber does a job, client calls back, job's not really done, I'm upset, Bob the plumber has to come back. That's very costly and it basically gobbles up their entire margin in most cases. So the return number was their other measurable. So every single human being in the organization literally having at least one measurable that they're responsible for delivering on every single week. That's what 100% strong in the data component looks like. Now, as I said before, when the vision, people, and data components in your business are truly strong, the business becomes transparent. And what happens? But you get a bunch of issues that percolate up. And that's why we have the issues component. So the issues component is about being really great at solving issues once and for all when they arise so they don't keep coming back and haunting you forever. And this is an actual skill. It takes time, it takes energy to get great at this. But the first component in that is the issues list. Now, the issues list is simply a culture and a philosophy that no matter who you are in the entire organization, you can raise your hand and say, hey, I've got an issue or an opportunity, as I mentioned before. I've got an issue or opportunity. And for there to be a venue for my issue, for James Wisdom's issue, to get surfaced and be solved or dealt with somewhere within the organization, right? Because that honesty is extremely important. What you're going to find is that when you have that avenue truly open and people have the opportunity, they're going to bring amazing ideas to you. Hey, you know what? This particular part of the line could be made much more efficient if we did this, this, and this. Oh, you know what? That's a great idea. Not every great idea is going to come out of management. Sometimes they come out of your people, but you have to have that venue for them and that ability and that culture and that philosophy that you want to hear that from your people so you can solve those issues so that they're not dogging you forever and you can take advantage of the opportunities that they're going to surface for you as well. Now, the second tool that we use is the solving part of this, which is the issue, what we call the issue solving track. Now, this is just about getting really great at solving your issues once and for all when they arise, so they don't keep coming back forever. Now, what we've got here is an issues list. So this is, you take your issues every single week, and I'll talk about this a little bit more during Meeting Pulse. You take your issues and you prioritize what are the first, second, and third most important issues that you must get solved this week in order to free you up to do better business next week, right? So you simply go in, you identify those issues, you discuss those issues, and you solve those issues. Now that seems super simple. It's not, but it sort of is once you build the muscle, because what we've learned, and I've sat through thousands of hours of this, I'm sure you have too, maybe hundreds or thousands, is that you get leadership teams together into a meeting with an issue or a problem that they need to solve. and they discuss it forever. And then they walk out without ever having come up with a true solution for that problem. Then what happens next? The problem resurfaces. It doesn't get resolved. You wind up having another meeting and another meeting and another meeting. And this sort of goes on into infinity until the problem actually either solves itself or winds up getting solved. So this is the antidote for that. So the way this works is we identify the issue, which is you got to dig down to the root of the actual issue, because most of the time what shows up on this issues list is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the visible part of the issue. The real issue is generally underneath and it's underlying and needs to be dealt with. So you have to dig down to get truly to identify what the true root cause of the issue is. Then when you discuss it, you go around and you talk about the issue. Blue sky. Anybody can have any idea that they want, but saying it more than once is politicking. So you say what you need to say about the issue. You make the suggestions you need to say, you need to make. You discuss, debate, and ultimately decide on whatever decision or action needs to be taken out of that meeting in order to get to a solve. And a solve is generally, as I said, it's a decision or it's an action or a series of actions that people on the team, literally people on the leadership team, take ownership for and make a commitment to get done in the next 7 days in order to call the issue solved. Sometimes you run into issues that are a little bit bigger than that. We just want to keep moving the football down the field. We just want to keep getting first downs so that we can get to a solution in the future. And I'll get into more detail on that later, and certainly ask me questions on that offline if you like. Okay, so that's what 100% strong in the issues list looks like. You have a culture where everybody can raise their hand and say, hey, I've got an issue, and that issue is going to be addressed. And you're solving issues once and for all when they arise, and they're not coming back and haunting you forever. That's what 100% strong in the issues component looks like. Next up, we've got the process component. Now, as I said before, the process component is just about getting the most important stuff in your business done the right and best way every single time. Right? This makes it more profitable to run the business because it's more repeatable, makes it easier to onboard people, makes it more fun because honestly, once you've got your processes defined, you can then focus on the creativity and the new ideas, new products in the marketplace that you can take advantage of. It frees up your people to do the truly great work if they're not running around putting out fires within your process day in and day out. So let's get into this a little bit. So every business has a handful of core processes, right? Everyone's got a people process, everyone's got a marketing and sales process. So for the people process, how do you hire people? How do you reward people? How do you bring people in, onboarding, et cetera? That's within your people process. Your marketing process is how do you create demand in the marketplace to bring that demand to your sales team? The sales team, how do you convert that demand into actual sales? You probably have one or two operations processes, maybe three, maybe four. Depends. As a manufacturing organization, I'm sure that you've got a lot of processes that you've got to have in place in order to deliver your product. Customer service process, how are you going to serve your customers when they come to you and they need help? An accounting process, how are you going to deal with your bills, your AP, your AR, et cetera. But the core process is just about focusing on those most important processes in your business so that you get them done the right and best way every single time. Now, how do you actually do that? So what we do is we create a table of contents for and we call it your company way, or we can call it really whatever you like, but we focus on a 20-80 approach, right? 20% of the steps to get you 80% of the way there. Now, in some cases, obviously, if you're ISO certified, you're going to have deep process manuals and you have to have those. That's appropriate. But what I'm talking about is a living document for your people, marketing, sales, some of your ops processes, et cetera, how you manage your people that is not a 700-page user manual, but is a living document that you're constantly evolving over time so that your processes are getting refined every single week and every single day so that you're the best that you can be. Now, you create a binder, a document, a virtual space, whatever works for you, where your people can reference those processes simply and easily so that they can follow those processes. And then let me get into followed by all, right? Because I just talked about people. So let's get into what the followed by all. Now, this is the philosophy that I believe in here. Systemize the predictable so you can humanize exceptional. Now, I'm a little bit weird about process. I think process is sexy. I have developed major processes for many of the organizations that in my past, I don't develop processes for my clients right now. I certainly help them when they need it. But what I have discovered in my experience, the reason why I think process is sexy is that when you make your core processes strong, it gives the organization freedom to do amazing things, right? If you don't, they're always in the weeds, they're always firefighting, and you never have the ability to actually step back and go, hey, what's the next big thing? How are we going to beat this marketplace? And ask those bigger, more important questions. So that's why I love process. Now, followed by all is the human part of processes, right? Because you can document till you're blue in the face, but if they're not actually followed by anybody, and I see this regularly, um, then you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, right? I see this happen in businesses all the time. Hey, we have this robust process manual, it exists, but people aren't actually following it. You got to get the processes followed by all. So how do we do that? You've got to train your people on those processes. You've got to be measuring your people on those processes. So if they're following the processes, great. That should be part of their assessments. You've got to be leading people, or LMA, leading, managing, and holding people accountable to those processes. That's what LMA stands for. And you've got to be updating those processes in a living document on an ongoing basis so that you're constantly evolving those processes and you're constantly making them better. That's what we call the followed by all checklist. You've got to get all four of these things done in order to have your people truly following the processes. Okay? Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. That's the process component. That's what 100% strong looks like. Now, last up is the traction component. Now, traction is about bringing, as I said before, bringing that vision down to the ground and making it real. Now, the first component in the traction component is the rocks, right? Now, we talked about rocks before in the VTO, right? Rocks are your 90-day priorities, what you and your team must get done in the next 90 days in order to advance the business toward your 1 year plan, your 3 year picture, and your 10-year target, right? So that's the rocks. But what's more deep than that is that every quarter, you need to step back from the business and say, okay, how do we do last quarter? Right? Reflect. How are we doing on our rocks? What changed? What were our big wins? What were our big losses? And you're learning. You need to reassess your vision. So are we all still on the same page as a leadership team with the vision? Yes or no? And maybe some tweaks need to be made. That's okay. And then you look forward to the next quarter and say, okay, well, where do we need to go now? Right. And based on where we are and where we're going, where do we need to go now? So you're establishing what we call a 90-day world within your organization. Because what we've learned as EOS implementers and what Gino realizes that after about 84 days, people start to lose focus, right? You've probably seen this happen yourself with yourself, which is that if you don't have a reminder, if you're not refocusing yourself very regularly along your journey, you're not going to get there. You're going to lose track. I can't tell you how many organizations that I've seen great plans, great strategies get mothballed because people simply forgot about them and there was no one there to say, hey, let's refocus on this important strategy. Don't be one of those companies. Next up is the meeting pulse. Now, the meeting pulse is just about taking that 90-day world that we just talked about, but also having a meeting pulse where you meet the same day, the same time, start on time, end on time with the same agenda. We call this the L10 meeting. It's about establishing a drumbeat, a pulse within your organization so that you're consistently revisiting, you're learning about your business, you're being the best that you can be. So let me give you a quick run through of what the level 10 meeting looks like. We start with good news, right? We get everybody in the right mindset of that they're going to this meeting positively. So what's their good news for last week? Just 5 minutes. Then we do a scorecard review. I went over the scorecard with you. Are we all on track? The rock review, again, what are the rocks that you set for this quarter? Are those on track? The customer and employee headlines. Are your customers and employees happy? What's going on there? What are the headlines that we need to know about? We need to be aware of. Now you'll notice that this just says 5 minutes for each one of these, right? This is not a deep dive. So if you get to something in the scorecard that's off track, you say, oh, this is off track, and we drop it down. And I'll get to what that happens with that in a second. But the idea here is that you don't get sidetracked off on a cul-de-sac talking about something that eats up a bunch of time, but frankly isn't that important. right? So it's about helping you stay focused. Then we inject a little to-do list after those so that we know that the things that we committed to are actually getting done in the business and we're holding each other accountable. Then we spend the majority of the time, 60 minutes of that meeting, IDSing, just like I described before. We're taking the issues that have surfaced in the scorecard, the rock review, and the headlines, also the issues list that you brought in from last week, and any other issues that have been surfaced by your employees and your people. You're making decisions about, as I said before, prioritizing the first, second, and third most important, and you're actually getting traction. You're getting stuff done. You're solving problems. You're moving the business forward every single week in this meeting. Then you spend just 5 minutes concluding together, rating the meeting, helping yourself be the best that you can be. It's okay to say, hey, Fred, you really went on a long time about X, Y, Z. We probably could have solved that problem a little better because you're not being critical of Fred, right? You're establishing a culture where you are having, there's an expectation that you're going to help each other be better, right? It's not meant to hurt Fred's feelings. It's just meant to, for the whole team to be aware of how we can be the best team that we can be together. Okay, that's the level 10 meeting. And that's what 100% strong looks like in the traction component. And that's the EOS model, right? These are the 6 key components that we use to help businesses run very, very, very well over time. Um, that's it. Vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction. Now, our focus, my focus as a human being, and my focus with every business that I work with is for you to get results. And your focus should be the same way, which is what are the actual results of the actions that I'm taking in my business? Now, this model will help you unlock everything you need to actually get the results you need to get in your business. Now, we talked about the foundational tools. Now, these are 5 great tools that are the foundation of a well-run business, but there's about 25 tools within the EOS toolbox that are all designed to help you do these things better. So these are the foundational tools. Use these foundational tools. They're all freely available on the internet. I'm available to you to answer any question you have along the way. Please don't hesitate to give me a call. Hey, James, I don't get about how we should set rocks. It doesn't feel right how we're setting rocks. We're not accomplishing our rocks. Let me know. Give me a call. I'm here to help. Um, and I want you to think about getting what you want from your business, right? So I love this quote. I've never felt so alive and in control. I own the vision for my future and the ability to share it with others and get them on board. Here's the best part. I'm 41 years old. I can only imagine what's possible. This is a very typical quote. I hear quotes like this from my clients. Recently, I had a client that sat back. This was the very beginning of their journey. Now we just finished developing the vision for the vision, and she sat back and she did this with her hands, and she said, "I'm having a divine moment. This team has never agreed on anything before." And laughed, right? We all laughed and we had a great moment together because leadership teams can be tough, right? You've got differing opinions. You've got to come to a decision or else you just get locked in place, right? So part of this is about helping you get a team that can actually work together and accomplish something together. So that's my program for today. This is real, it's simple, and it's about results. Thank you. I hope this was beneficial to you. There's my contact. Oh, there's my contact information. I'm James Wisdom. I'm a certified EOS implementer. There's my phone number. My email is james.wisdom@EOS Worldwide. And as I said, eosworldwide.com. And as I said, please feel free to give me a call, send me a text. I'm here to help. Thank you.